Today, as you enjoy your favorite alcohol, of which eventually the president has relented to the pressure of the economics and forced his hand to be able to say that he's opening bottle stores, bar restaurants, and taverns. Do not forget to thank and think about the frontline workers because what we're just hearing about what's happening to them just gets worse. Remember, there was a story about a tender that's over 15 million rands of the PPE, of which when they tested them, they were 50% faulty. So now, when the health workers are going to do their work, they're constantly afraid of contracting the communist virus. So as a result, you can imagine the tension that they'll be having one-on-one with the patients who are infected. I mean, those are people who are normally making patients who are terrified, who got one thing in mind, leaving this planet and going to the other side. Put it bluntly, thinking about not making it and being dead. So you can imagine, in most cases, the frontline workers would take care of you and make sure that you're comfortable, comfort you, give you a medication, always beaming with smiles and so forth. So here is a person, when they come to take care of you, they get scared. They get scared. I was listening to another health worker who said that they're not having the N95 masks. They've given them few that they're saying that they constantly should repeat wearing. The stories is sad. Add to that, I remember the president had a bit of fun time, good time when he was in Limpopo at that lodge where the folks who were flown in back to South Africa had to be in Polokwane, and the president was talking about how great the frontline health workers are, and I think he gave a couple of awards, only to find out that the other awards that would matter, beside having the protective gear for the frontline health worker, they were promised that they would get an annual increase from April. As of today, the frontline workers haven't received any increase. And I'm not even talking about them getting maybe an overtime money and just a pat on the back to thank them of the hard work that they've been doing. Remember when this communist virus came to our shore, everybody was super, super scared about the situation. And these are the first people who are then has to meet patients who are infected. And overall, they've been doing very well, despite the fact that every time you turn on your television, you'll see such and such hospitals, health workers being on strike. Why? Because they're not getting the proper basic things that they're supposed to be getting. And just now, the U.S. ambassador to South Africa was talking about, obviously, she recognized the corruptions that are beset our country in terms of the COVID tender. So there's a 4.7 million rents roughly there of the PPEs, the gloves, all things that are required to be given to the frontline health workers who are needing it. So the ambassador said that the US ambassador to South Africa said she's going to send all these required PPEs straight to the hospitals and to the people who needed them, because of she has recognized about the corruption that has been happening in South Africa, which is one of the other embarrassing things, like where the whole world is watching how this whole problem is plaguing us. Add to that, there's an article on the Sunday Independent that states that the 80 COVID-19 nurses still not paid at Pretoria's Dr. George Mukhari Hospital. By the way, speaking of frontline workers, school screeners not paid as Education Department and Public Works pass the buck. So Folks who were then screening schools, working hard, as the parents were like scared, thinking of the situation where the kid has to go to a school and hoping and praying that everything will be taken care of. Well, obviously, with the fears and knowing our government, that's always being ill prepared. Now, this is happening. You have the screeners who are not getting paid the money that they're supposed to be paid. I mean, this is like unbelievable. So let me read you this article quickly from the Independent Online. It's penned by Karabo Ngwepe and Mzilikazi Africa. It states, Johannesburg, a nurse in a COVID-19 ward of the Dr. George Mukhari Hospital in Tshwane collapsed and then tested positive for COVID-19 while still waiting for a salary. At least 80 nurses who were roped in last month to help combat the virus that has claimed the lives of 11,000 South Africans and infected more than 500,000 others have not received a single cent since working there. Nurses were employed following a call by the Gauteng Department of Health for qualified professionals to apply for positions and to help the province deal with the peak of the outbreak. In June, suspended MEC Bandile Masuki announced the province would be creating extra beds and that would require more staff to be able to cope with the influx of patients. But since responding to the clarion call, the nurses have found themselves in the line of fire and more at risk of contracting the virus while not knowing if they will get paid. When we asked for exact date, they said it would be before the end of the month and it would be double. We said we don't care whether it's double or not, but we want to know when exactly we're getting paid. They said there was a lady who was on contract who collapsed and tested positive for COVID. She still have not been paid. They expect us to work in the COVID wards, but we don't even have money to buy supplements to boost our immune systems. How are we expected to buy them and eat healthy if we don't have money? We are at the forefront of the virus, but we are not being taken care of, said Enes. So the article continues on and on and on. So, like I said, these are the frontline workers. Here, they don't even have money to get your simple vitamin C, your zinc, your selenium, your vitamin B, and so forth. Just the basic stuff. And these are the people who have been roped in order to deal with mitigating the influx, or should there be a peak where a whole lot of people are to be admitted in the hospital. What we hear in the news each and every single day is hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of millions of the COVID tenders that the ANC factions are dividing it among themselves and snitching on each other all over the place. The Andile Masuku, the MEC of health here in Gauteng province, who had been suspended. I mean, this happened under his call. Amid that, he's being told to step aside so that they can have a bit of investigation about the tender allegations of the buddy situation with the spokesperson of the president, Mrs. Diko, whom her husband had 125 million worth of tender of PPEs. The president has announced 4 days after the president had announced about the lockdown and the contract that would be awarded for the PPEs and so forth. The spokesperson of the husband of the spokesperson of the ANC president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, got the deal, and recently now the former MEC, whether he's still MEC or not, well, because this normally is what happens with the ANC. They put you aside when you getting the heat in the media, maybe for 2 months. After 2 months, you're coming back. So he's probably going to come back. He's now claiming that the Dikos families are kind of name dropping or abusing his closeness of being the MEC in the education department in order for them to get tender in their name. Sort of that story of people who were accused of name dropping the former president Zuma in order to get the goodies in the government in terms of tenders. So that's the story. While we are at it now, the MK Veterans Association. Remember, there's two. There's one which Siphiwe Nyanda purport to say is the real McCoy. I guess this one would be on the side of CR17, and then there's the MK Veteran Organization, which is headed by Mapadzwe or Mpadwe. He was speaking today. MKMVA. The leader's name is KB Mapadzwe. So he was decrying the ANC factionalism and calls for COVID-19 Interministerial Committee to be disbanded. He stated that the NEC can't be able to take its decisions because it's along the factional lines. He's aggravated by this whole situation. You would think that it's someone from a different political party criticizing the governing party, the ANC. No. He's also a member of the ANC. Few days ago, the president was talking tough against corruption, right? People would be locked up. On the other side, people who are working close to him, the Diko families and the deputy minister in the office of the presidency's cousin who also got PPE tenders, that's north of millions of rands. So how is the president going to be able to call those in order? What we as the society sees to be his faction. And here you have KB Mapadzwe now talking about ANC supposed to be getting together. I mean, this is the group also which for a long time wanted the former president Jacob Zuma to stay. And you also can't blame them. Remember, the ANC parliament, the whole parliament voted, I think over 8 times, voted for President Jacob Zuma to stay. So this is just one thing, but they coming out clowning around and of how hurt they were. Like Banyaza Lesufi, who was talking about how hurt he is when he hear people talking about ANC must go, hashtag protect ANC, and that hurts him deeply about what is happening. So the silver lining of this COVID-19, aka communist virus, is that the ANC's incompetence in committing corruption, just like the way they're so incompetent when they have to shut down electricity during load shedding, say at 1 o'clock. They're so incompetent that you'll get advantaged by them shutting down the electricity at 30 minutes after 1. And sometimes they'll be so incompetent that when they have to bring it back maybe at 5 p.m., they'll be so incompetent and bring it back at 30 minutes later on. So this is just the whole situation. So the fraud each and every year which they were committing, they were all over the place, but you'd have a fraud where the budget got released around March, and then another comrade would grab a tender somewhere there in September, and another one would get it in the following year with rollover money. So it wasn't that blatant like the way we're seeing it now. So we can only thank the communist virus now, because the PPEs, the gloves, surgical gloves, the masks are required to be used now. The sanitizers are required to be used now. The ventilators, everything. So as a result, the tenders are supposed to come out now. So it's like cockroaches if you come back from the club at 2 a.m. in the morning, scattering all over the place because the COVID light is just shining up, all over their faces. So this is like a 10-year corruption which would just make you be numb and get used to it, but it's happening at this short period of time. So all the comrades who are to get tenders, they have to get them now, and we all see them now doing that. Billions and billions of money being looted, where else they don't even have a shame of saying, listen, let's make sure that the doctors, the nurses, everyone, the emergency services have everything that's required. Then we can steal the money. They give them faulty stuff. which endangers them and making them be sick. The front line, which is supposed to be taking care of the people of Republic. And as a result, you have a big number of people who are being infected, which causes them to shut down the country more, of which is something that we cannot afford because of our economy was cratering. Before the communist virus, each and every agency was downgrading us. We're heading towards 30% unemployment by then. I mean, if you're a criminal who has a little bit of shame, you would make sure that the frontline health workers get everything that they're getting so that they will quickly be able to assist people who are infected by this communist virus so quickly, to such an extent that we stem the rate of infection so that the country can go back to work, so that you can be able to collect enough tax of which you'll have more to steal. But hey, I guess this is just how it is. They can't help it. They can't help it. And I guess if they have stolen monies of their icon, Nelson Mandela, in their political parties, the funeral monies and other ANC icons' funeral money, what's the reason? I mean, what is it that they can't do? Definitely they will steal during a pandemic of which probably there'll be another one in the next 100 years when we are all not alive here on planet Earth, where the next generation will be experiencing it. I mean, this is an organization where when they have to give the press conferences, be either the ministers in government as well as the president, they've never been on time during a pandemic. So if they stole Mandela's funeral money, what makes them stop stealing the pandemic money? No, let alone the food parcels and so forth. So my name is Mamuji. Thanks for watching the Mamuji Show, and I'm out.